everybody, my name is Kim Graham. I'm here just going to talk to you guys about a couple things that are really important for you to know before going on maternity leave. If you are a teacher or if you're someone who works in that type of environment, you definitely want to stick around and check it out. So let's hop right in. To give you a little background on myself before I go any further is my name is Kim Graham. I've been a teacher for almost a decade, and then I had my baby and decided that it was time for me to check out this work-at-home mom thing. Tried it for a year, loved it, and have continued to do it. I never thought of myself as a stay-at-home, work-at-home mom. I wanted to give myself the opportunity to try being a work-at-home mom to see if I liked it. That's all I wanted, just the opportunity to try it, because I figured I should afford myself the opportunity to try staying home for a year and see if I like it. And if I do, I'm gonna make it happen. And if I wanna go back to work, I'm gonna go back to work. And so far, I've absolutely loved my experience being home. I love working from home. Of course, there are their pros and cons, but that's another video. Today, we're just gonna talk about if you wanna have the opportunity, the choice to be able to stay home longer after your maternity leave, or if you want to have the opportunity to work from home, or if you want a longer maternity leave than 6 weeks, or if you're trying to figure out how do I even plan maternity leave in general. I'm going to give you some tips, some really quick tips, just to kind of help you along with that. Now, if you're not pregnant yet, it's totally fine. If you're not pregnant and you're just thinking about being pregnant, if you're just thinking about starting a family, this is still a really important video for you. If you're already pregnant and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I'm ready for this, it's okay. This is still super important for you to listen to as well. So stay tuned. My first tip for you is to make sure that you have your idea of what you want for your maternity leave. Do you want 6 weeks? Do you want 8 weeks? Do you want 12 weeks? Do you want more? You need to kind of figure that out in your head now. So let's just say this is a huge, this is a huge pivotal moment in your life. You have just had this beautiful bundle of joy. You're super happy. In my opinion, 6 weeks is just not long enough. There are some people who are like ready for it. And if you are one of those women who are like, I know that I'm going to be ready to go back to work, then the thing that you need to be thinking about is, what does daycare look like for you? Do you just want to put the child in any daycare, or do you want to be able to give yourself the opportunity to afford your child an amazing daycare experience where you feel like you're in tune with what the baby needs, while also being able to do what you're doing at work? It's wonderful to be able to have peace of mind while you're at work, knowing that your child is taken care of and having a really good time while you're working and getting stuff done, right? So that's the first thing. Envision what you want for your maternity leave. Envision what you want your life to be after maternity leave is over. Do you want to go back full-time? Do you want to be part-time? Things like that. Another thing to think about is daycare. And I know you probably have already thought about daycare, but maybe you haven't done research on how much it actually costs. Daycare can be quite expensive. If you're not ready for it, it can slap you in the face. Something that you may have learned from other people who have gone before you, have had kids, or maybe not, is that you want to start looking for daycares as soon as possible. Like as soon as that pregnancy test is positive, go look for a daycare. Infant spaces are really hard to take up because due to ratios, you can only have like 2 to 3 infants per adult, and a lot of times they'll fill those up really fast. Daycare centers, same difference. So you want to make sure that you can kind of put your name on that waiting list. Even if you're shopping around, put your name on that waiting list so that you already have an idea of where you want to go. Second tip, please, as you're going through your maternity, as you're pregnant and you're going through all the things, you're going to have lots of doctor's appointments. You're going to have lots of things that you have to think about. One of the things that I think is so important is insurance. Check out your insurance. Peruse the site, call them. I know it takes forever to get someone on the phone, but maybe not for you, but sometimes like calling them and asking them questions. What is actually covered for my, when I have this baby? Is my hospital stay covered? What types of medications are covered? Make sure that whatever hospital you're going to deliver at, make sure each and every department is covered by your insurance. From personal experience, I had a child, or my daughter could have gone to the NICU, and so it was a very big risk that they talked about the whole time. And they asked me if I wanted a NICU consult the night that I was in labor and kind of going through all my things. And A 5-minute conversation cost $250 out of pocket. And then it later found out, as I was trying to battle it out, later found out that my NICU in my hospital is not covered by my insurance. Thank God she didn't have to go to the NICU, but if she did, that would have been a huge expense coming out of my pocket that I was not prepared for. As much as I love money and budgeting, that was not something that was on my radar. I have no clue, and I don't want to know how astronomical that could have been. So I thank God that that was not the case, but please make sure that you know exactly what your insurance covers, exactly what part of the hospital it covers, so that you know that you're prepared going into labor, that everything is covered and you're not having to worry about anything, because having a baby is expensive. Okay, here's number 3. So tip number 3 is talking to your HR rep. If you're a teacher, okay, so it doesn't matter what county you work for, I have no clue. There are different rules and regulations for every HR. I'm from Maryland and I'm in Howard County, and so for Howard County, we really have to make sure we are on top of our HR. Our HR does a great job in some cases, and I know they have the best interests at heart, but they have a lot of stuff to cover. And so really take it upon yourself to go look at the clauses and every single clause in the maternity leave packet that you get for FMLA leave and all that good stuff. Make sure you understand it. If you do not, ask them questions, email them, call them, not just one time, incessantly. I'm not even kidding. One of the clauses that I know that is in the Howard County FMLA and maternity leave booklet is that if your leave lands 5 weeks or less before the end of the year, you don't have to go back. So many women I know go back because, in teaching, go back because they want that summer pay, which you'll still get your summer pay. It's just one lump sum, and that pay comes mid-June, and then you divvy it out for the rest of the summer. So you still get that pay. But if you're like, I don't feel comfortable, I really want to make sure I have consistent pay, then it might be your best interest to go back for 2 days at the end of the school year. That's up to you, however you choose to do that. But if you're like, no, I'm not ready to go back, not just because of personal reasons, like I just want to be with my kid, but maybe your kid isn't feeding. Maybe they're still having issues with breastfeeding and they're having weight issues. Maybe they have to go back and forth to the doctor for other reasons that happened after baby was born. You have every right to call your HR and say, listen, I don't want to go back. There's only 5 weeks left in the school year. It does not make sense to have another teacher, even if it's me, to come back in after a long-term sub has been in there for 8, 12 weeks. Doesn't make sense for me to come back for 5. Like, that's just silly. So you can kind of compromise with them, say I'll come back the last week as we're, kind of cleaning up, or I'll come back the last 2 days, but I'm not coming back. If you have doctor's notes, they will back you up. If you are not doing well with your mental capacity, maybe postpartum depression has hit hard and you need to go to different therapies and things of that nature, which is totally fine. This is a huge momental occasion that's happening to your life. You owe it to yourself to give yourself the time to get yourself back to where you were supposed to be. You don't have to force yourself to go back to work. So talk to HR about it. They are willing to work with you. And if you're like, listen, I'm in therapy, my child isn't feeding well, or I had a C-section and I'm still healing, I'm not ready. All of those types of things are valid reasons for you to say, we're within that 5-week mark. I know I'm supposed to be back, but I'm not ready. I would rather come back that last week of school, or I would rather not have to come back. And as long as you have doctoral proof to back that up, they have to work with you. Or I should say they should work with you, right? I am not claiming that any of these things happened. A lot of the stuff that I'm saying are based on my own personal experiences. I was supposed to come back within the last 3 weeks, and I called and emailed and said, listen, my child has feeding issues. I am not latching. I'm constantly at the lactation consultant. I also have, she's also not gaining weight. There were so many issues, and I was able to get doctoral proof to prove that I was not eligible to come back to work. I know of some other women who had postpartum depression, and because they needed a little bit more time, they were not mentally fit to come back and also add that extra stress of being back at work. And so they got an extra time frame that they could be home and kind of get themselves together. You deserve this opportunity. Now, a lot of times what people ask me is they say, well, I would love to do all of those things, Kim, but I just don't have the money to do so. So I'm talking to those of you who are kind of thinking about having a kid. You know you're going to start a family soon, but you're not quite there yet. Here's your next tip. Ready? Your next tip is start saving now. Even if you're already pregnant and you got 3 more months left, you can start saving. You can start thinking about what you can cut back. Maybe you cut back cable for 3 months, and that's an extra $80 a month that you can put to the side and actually have an extra amount of money so that you could pay for that bill that you know you're going to have to pay later on. Might not take up the whole salary, but maybe you can find other ways that to kind of help you. Maybe your spouse is able to do overtime, and if you have an honest conversation about it and say, I really want to make sure I can have 12 weeks, then figure out how much overtime, how much extra work can you do in the meantime to make sure that you have that money saved up. The last thing you want to do is put it all on credit cards and then have to deal with that later, because there's so many things, so many expenses to go with babies. You definitely don't want to mess up your credit just because of that. So go ahead and plan early. If you are just thinking about having a kid, start thinking about that baby fund now. Even if it's $10, $20, $30 that you're putting to the side every month, it's going to help in the long run. If you decide not to breastfeed and you decide to do a formula, that stuff's expensive. So get yourself ready for those types of things by just putting something aside. My recommendation for my financial coach students and for anyone that I recommend, everyone I talk to, I ask them to have 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund of things that you need for your 4 walls ready to go for an emergency. And in my opinion, if you decide to have a baby, I'm not saying it's an emergency, but you have a fund there that can help you. I really tried my hardest not to touch that emergency fund, but it gave me a really good understanding, a really good cushion of knowledge that even if my money ran out from the savings that we had an extra buffer there just in case. So give yourself a buffer, give yourself some time so that you can actually give yourself the opportunity to say, no, I don't want to go back in 6 weeks. I want to go back in 12. And that could help you with, your actual maternity leave. This tip kind of goes along with insurance, but it's still really important. You want to make sure that you document everything. Every doctor's visit that you go on, if you're choosing to buy a breast pump, which you can get for free through your insurance, make sure that it's covered by your insurance. So like I said before, with going through your insurance and making sure you're getting yourself acclimated with it, call them and ask them what types of perks you get through your insurance, because a lot of times they'll give a discount to you. But even when you're doing things like that, keep the receipt, keep your emails, keep all those things and send it to them. I had a girlfriend who actually had a binder full of doctor's things, and she would print out everything, print out and write down notes about every visit, so then she actually had documentation, because the insurance companies mix up things all the time. You're simply a number to them, and a lot of times things go missing, and a lot of times you're charged for things that you shouldn't be charged for. So especially in this time when things get really busy, keep track of every appointment you go to. Keep track of every time they charge you for something. Also, you don't have to do everything they tell you to do. So if you're at an appointment and your doctor says, hey, I'd like to give you this shot, it's going to help the baby, it's going to be great, we need to go ahead and do this. Even if it's an emergency, that's one thing. But if it's not and you can wait, feel free to say, can we wait and do this on another time? I really need to call my insurance company to make sure it's covered. Or can you make sure it's covered before we do this? Because the last thing you want is a $250 bill coming to your house because you didn't ask a question. So don't be afraid to ask if it's covered by your insurance. Don't be afraid to give yourself the opportunity to research things first before things happen. Of course, if there's an emergency and it's for the baby, and it has to be done now, girl, you might just have to deal with that. That's where that savings comes in, right? But if you can, it's a great opportunity to do that. Even with breast pumps, when you buy them, it's a good idea to keep all the receipts, because sometimes if you might have to pay upfront for it and then they'll reimburse you, and you want to make sure you're keeping track of that, and keeping track of the tracking and all that other fun stuff. You also want to make sure, even after birth, so when you're finished having the baby and you're home and you're getting yourself ready, the last thing you want is to be on the phone with the insurance companies all the time. Here's another tip for you guys that I forgot. Here's another tip. They don't send you baby, the documents. So they're not going to send you the birth certificate. I thought the birth certificate would come in the mail. It does not for Maryland. You actually have to go down and pick it up at the Social Security office. So you might sign all that paperwork in the hospital, but they're not going to give it to you in a beautiful package on the way home. You have to go actually pick it up. And then you have 30 days from the moment you have that baby, you have 30 days to call your insurance company and put that baby on your insurance. If you do not, I'm living proof. If you do not, then you have to wait until the next term that your insurance turns over. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you are calling within that 30 days to get the baby on your insurance. Super important. You want to make sure you have all those documents in check. There's so many more things. Oh my goodness, there's so many things. I hope I didn't overwhelm you. I was trying to keep this short, sweet, and simple and to the point, but things are important to say. If you are like, oh my gosh, I'm completely overwhelmed, tell me below in the comments. It's totally fine if you're overwhelmed. If you need help with something, if you're like, oh my gosh, Kim, I don't even know how to start saving between now and then. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know what my bills are doing. Please let me know. I'd love to sit down and help you. Financial coaching is something that's really dear and passionate to my heart, and I'd love to help you. Please let me know below, and I'd love to connect with you. If you're thinking about if you liked what you heard and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many more things that you forgot to say, tell me below. What are some amazing tips that you need to know while you're planning for maternity leave, especially if you're a teacher? What are some things that you need to know? So go ahead and tell me below. I can't wait to hear from you. Please make sure that you like and subscribe. I plan on having other things, videos around this topic. I'd love to have you join me. So please let me know and find me online at these places. All right. Have a great day, guys. Bye.